This time, I understood things with a clarity that was both terrifying and liberating. When Clara called to say she wouldn't be home for the holidays, a wave of profound relief washed over me. Instead of waiting for her as I had in my past life, I packed a small bag and took the bus back to my home village by myself. When she arranged for Leo to rent the apartment next to ours, a move that had once filled me with a quiet, simmering resentment, I simply found a new place to live on the other side of town. And when she announced her decision to take a permanent position at the local military school, cementing her future in our small town, I quietly filled out an application to a technical university in the sprawling metropolis of City A. My previous life had been a long, drawn-out lesson in suffering. It was a life so filled with quiet desperation that even our own children eventually advised me to grant their mother a divorce so that she and the man she truly loved could finally be together. Even in death, now holding the crisp acceptance letter from the university in my hands, the paper felt heavier than a lifetime of regret. A lump formed in my throat, and I had to fight back tears of gratitude. No one knew that I had been given a second chance, reborn into this younger, healthier body. At the very last moment, I had changed my college preference, a small act of rebellion that would rewrite my entire future. Even my high school teacher had been taken aback by my choice. He had called me into his office, his brow furrowed with genuine concern. "Ethan, isn't your fiancée, Clara, staying here to teach at the school? City A is a long way to go for college. Can she wait for you for 4 years?" Thinking of Clara, an image of her younger self bloomed in my mind, graceful, elegant, and filled with a burning ambition that I could never match. To everyone who knew us, our relationship was a mismatch. She was the beautiful, accomplished officer at the military academy, and I was just the quiet boy from the village whom she tolerated because of a betrothal arranged by our families when we were children. I was reaching far beyond my station. I offered my teacher a small, genuine smile. "Sir, times have changed. It's all about freedom of choice in love now. An arranged betrothal is an outdated relic from a feudal past. I don't think it's for us." My teacher, perhaps surprised by this sudden display of self-awareness, simply nodded and patted my shoulder, his eyes filled with a newfound admiration. Leaving the school that day, I blended into the throng of students heading home, a sense of quiet joy settling in my chest. In my past life, I never went to college. Within a few short days of graduation, Clara and I were married. Children followed soon after, and my own education became a forgotten dream. While I remained at home, my world shrinking with each passing year, Clara joined the military and began her rapid ascent. We became inhabitants of two different worlds that rarely intersected. She rose through the ranks, and wherever her career took her, Leo and her daughter Maya were sure to follow. I was left behind, a permanent fixture in our small corner of the world, responsible for caring for our aging elders and raising our children. I watched my own son grow up, slowly drifting away from me and gravitating towards Clara and her world. Years later, when he married Leo's daughter, I only found out after the ceremony had already taken place. An old friend, thinking he was sharing happy news, showed me a photograph. It captured my son respectfully serving tea to his new wife, while in the background, Clara and Leo stood side by side, sharing a look of quiet, knowing contentment. As the years wore on, my son would often bring up the topic of divorce. "Dad," he would say, his voice laced with a pity that cut deeper than any anger. "Mom has suffered her whole life. If it wasn't for you, she would have been with Maya's father a long time ago. You two just don't belong together. Why can't you just let her go?" Even my daughter-in-law, a woman I had never met, refused to see me. But how could I let go? I was unwilling to simply walk away after all I had endured. I wasn't willing to forget the years I spent caring for my paralyzed in-laws while she was out building her career and her other life. I wasn't willing to erase the memory of carrying our sick child for miles in the dead of night, my feet bare and bleeding, to find a doctor while she was playing the piano with another man and tutoring his child. I wasn't willing to accept that after I had sacrificed every personal dream for the sake of our family, they could all unanimously agree that we didn't match. Everyone asked me why I wouldn't let go, but my refusal was the only thing I had left. The relentless hard work of my youth had worn me down, aging me far beyond my years. In the bitterest corners of my heart, I wanted them to suffer with my presence even in death. After I was gone, I didn't care if they ended up together. My end finally came after another one of my son's long, pleading arguments for me to grant the divorce. He spoke for what felt like hours, his frustration mounting with my continued silence. When he finally left, slamming the door in anger, he didn't realize it hadn't fully latched. A sharp, crushing pain exploded in my chest and my heart began to seize. I called out his name, my voice a strangled whisper, but he was already gone, his footsteps fading down the hall without a single backward glance. In that final, agonizing moment, regret was the only thing I felt. Why had I raised him? Why had I wasted my entire existence for his sake? But then, miraculously, I was reborn, sent back to this moment before the wedding, before the slow erosion of my soul. Everything could still be different. Back at the small house provided by Clara's work, a modest 2-bedroom unit, I carefully tucked the acceptance letter away and began to prepare dinner. In the living room, I found a red pen and circled the date I was scheduled to leave for college on the wall calendar. I stared at the circle for a long moment, a dreamy sense of anticipation filling me. Soon, very soon, I would be free. Just as I was finishing cooking, Clara returned. As expected, Leo and his young daughter, Maya, were with her. "Ethan, sorry to bother you again," Leo said with a practiced ease. He was a handsome man, with fair skin and striking features, and the tan coat he wore gave him an air of sophistication. His daughter was already comfortable in our home. Seeing that I had cooked, she cheered and immediately started setting the table and serving the food, placing a bowl at every seat except for mine. When I emerged from the kitchen, the three of them were sitting at the table, heads bowed as if saying grace, looking for all the world like a perfect, happy family. The illusion shattered as soon as they tasted the food. "Dad, it's so salty!" Maya exclaimed, spitting her mouthful back into her bowl. I leaned against the kitchen door frame, watching impassively as Clara, not suspecting a thing, served soup to them. Her own grimace confirmed that it, too, was far too salty. Leo left with a pained expression, muttering, "I guess he isn't very welcoming. I won't come again." Clara saw them to the door and returned with a deep frown etched on her face. I ignored her displeasure and began preparing a fresh batch of dishes. "Did you do that on purpose?" she asked, her voice tight with confusion. Before I could answer, she explained, "His wife asked me to look after them before she passed away. Your cooking is usually great, and the kid loves it." Seeing my continued silence, she sighed. "If you're really that unhappy about it, I won't invite them over anymore." The next day, as soon as she left for work, I packed a bag. It was time for a trip to my home village. Although our betrothal was arranged, our families had exchanged traditional tokens and birth charts to formalize it. To truly dissolve the engagement, we needed witnesses from the community to prevent any future disputes. As I was packing, my eyes fell on a pile of hand-woven items I had secretly been working on for the past year. Cushion covers and placemats I had intended for our future home. After a moment of consideration, I packed them all into a large bag. I took the weavings, along with a new pair of shoes I had bought, to a small pawn shop on the corner. The work of an entire year sold for $30. It wasn't much, but with the high cost of food and living at the university, Every dollar would count. When I returned home, I took the red pen and drew a large X over that day's date on the calendar. 20 more days. In 20 days, I could leave this place and begin a new life. Clara came home late that evening. The dinner I had prepared was untouched. "I ate at the school," she explained casually, but the faint, elegant scent of white tea perfume clinging to her told me she had eaten with Leo and his daughter. She had done it so she wouldn't have to eat at home and make me feel uncomfortable. I quietly cleared the uneaten dishes and went back to my room. It was crammed with my high school textbooks and exam papers, with many more spilling out into the living room. I bundled up the books from my room, planning to clear out the rest when Clara was gone the next day. Since I was leaving for good, it didn't feel right to leave any of my things behind. While I was cleaning, there was a soft knock on my door. I knew it was Clara. She was always polite and would never enter my room without permission. "What is it?" I asked, not wanting her to see the bags I was packing. There was a pause from the other side of the door. "I'm writing the marriage proposal," she said. "Can we set the date for the 9th of next month?" That was the exact day we had gotten married in my past life. I glanced at my packed luggage and replied casually, "Marriage is a serious matter. I'll go back to the village tomorrow and have the elders check for an auspicious date." A long silence followed before I heard her footsteps retreat down the hall. I leaned against my bed, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Given her position and status, she didn't truly need my family's permission to submit a marriage proposal. My parents had passed away when I was young, and because of our childhood betrothal, her family had taken me in. To everyone in our social circle, I was already considered Clara's husband, and this proposal was merely a formality. She was beautiful, had a prestigious job, and treated me well. It was obvious to everyone, including my past self, that I was completely devoted to her. I owed her family a great deal, but in my previous life, I had spent an entire lifetime repaying that debt. This time, I owed them nothing. This life was for me, and it would be a life without Clara. The next morning, I was surprised to find that Clara had already prepared breakfast, setting out my favorites: fried eggs and 8-treasure porridge. In the 3 years I had been living and studying here, she had rarely done such a thing. I sat down quietly, the only sound in the room the soft clinking of my spoon against the porcelain bowl. "I'll take the day off and go with you," Clara said, her voice breaking the silence. I looked up, startled, and instinctively shook my head. "I'll drive you back," she insisted, frowning slightly. "It's not safe for you to travel alone." I was about to refuse again when a small girl with pink ribbons in her hair burst through the door and ran straight into Clara's arms. "Godmother!" she cried. "Maya, what are you doing here? Where's your dad?" Clara asked, glancing instinctively towards the door. The little girl looked at me before whispering, "Dad says Uncle doesn't like him, so he was scared to come." I looked silently at this child, who, in my past life, had married my son, but had never once appeared in my own. Even at her young age, it was clear she would grow into a beautiful woman. It was no wonder my son had idolized both her and her father, despite the 4-year age difference between them. Clara hurried off with Maya, explaining that Leo wasn't feeling well. She left in such a rush that she didn't say another word to me. I let out a small chuckle. That certainly solved the problem of needing an excuse to go back to the village alone. I picked up the red pen and crossed off another day on the calendar. 19 more days. I gathered the remaining books and notes from the living room, tied them into bundles, and sold them to a second-hand shop for $13. With the money in my pocket, I left for my village. The sole purpose of this trip was to officially end my betrothal to Clara. Her family had always treated me kindly, but convincing them to agree wasn't as difficult as I had feared. I simply explained that Clara's future was bright, and that she was destined for great things, and that we were no longer a suitable match for each other. The village courtyard felt quiet and somber. A small fire smoldered nearby, attracting a cloud of mosquitoes. I sat pressing tobacco leaves under a wooden board, finely slicing them with a sharp knife, while my uncle and aunt sat silently on the threshold of their home. After a long while, they sighed deeply. "Ethan," my aunt said, her voice filled with kindness, "even if she has someone else on her mind, you two have a formal engagement. If she dares to refuse to marry you, I'll go sort her out myself. Your parents asked us to look after you before they passed." Seeing my unwavering silence, they exchanged a frustrated glance. "Why must you be so stubborn?" my uncle finally said. "Let's go to the committee." I followed them without a word. At the village committee office, they provided us with a formal letter of dissolution, and in front of the village elders, we exchanged our engagement tokens, officially nullifying the betrothal. I felt a profound sigh of relief escape me. Supporting my aging aunt and uncle as we walked back home, I knew they were only acting out of love and concern. Clara was considered a great catch, and even they couldn't comprehend why I was so insistent on breaking things off. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, to explain the lifetime of misery that awaited me down that path, a path that ended with me utterly alone. With the engagement successfully canceled, my elders assured me that I would always be their son. I didn't mention my plans to attend college in City A, but I stayed with them for 2 weeks. When it was time for me to leave, they walked me to the edge of the village, urging me to always consider their home as my own, and to visit often. As I bought my bus ticket back in town, I discovered that they had secretly slipped $200 into my pocket. Tears streamed down my face, hot and uncontrollable. Back at the house, I methodically drew 15 large red X's on the calendar. Only 4 days left. I was about to take my luggage to my room when I heard the front door open. Clara had just returned from work, and she had Leo and Maya with her. "You're back," she said, sounding surprised to see me. Leo just gave me a curt nod before walking past me and entering my room. I frowned as he casually shut my bedroom door, leaving my belongings scattered in the living room. I looked at Clara, who paused as if just remembering something. "Oh, Leo's place had a leak from the rain a couple of days ago, so he's staying here for a bit. I saw you weren't here and you don't have much stuff, so I let him use your room temporarily." "So you just cleared out my room and let someone else use it without even asking me?" I asked, my voice flat. She paused, and seeing I wasn't going to react further, she added, "Oh, and I moved your things into my room. You can stay with me for now." She opened her bedroom door as she spoke. "By the way, where are all your books? Why is there so little left?" I looked at the small bundle she had placed on her bedside table and pursed my lips. It didn't matter. The house was hers, and what she did with it was no longer my concern. "The exams are over, so the books are useless now. I sold them," I explained tonelessly. Clara frowned. "Even after exams, you might need them someday. Why would you sell them?" I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Sensing my mood, she changed the subject. "So, what did my parents say about the wedding date?" she asked, taking the bundle of my belongings from my hands. After a deliberate pause, I said, "Someone checked the dates, and it's not an auspicious time. We'll have to talk about it later." This was the excuse my uncle and aunt had agreed I should use to delay things. I planned to explain everything in a letter before I left. Clara seemed to accept this without suspicion, muttering something about picking new dates before she walked out again, mentioning she would make dinner and that I should rest. As she left, I noticed the marriage report lying on her desk, the space for the date conspicuously blank. Before I could even think about dinner, I heard voices from outside. a deep male voice, a playful female one, and a child's happy giggles. I sat back down on the bed. Staying here, in her house, sharing a room with her after having broken off our engagement, felt deeply improper. But with only 4 days left, finding a rental was pointless. I decided I would sleep on the living room floor. I had planned to go to bed early after the long day of travel, but Leo was full of energy, doing a workout in the living room, while Maya ran in and out of Clara's room as if it were a playground. I used the excuse of needing to fetch water to escape, grabbing a wash basin and heading outside. Once out in the cool night air, I took a deep breath. "Hey, Ethan, you're back? Weren't you visiting your in-laws?" Mrs. Davis, my next-door neighbor, called out as she joined me on the path to the community well, also carrying a basin. "Yeah, I was visiting for a few days. Just got back today," I replied. Mrs. Davis's husband was an accountant at the local mine, and they lived comfortably. She was a kind woman who often brought over a bowl of dumplings or other treats when they made them. We had always gotten along well. She hesitated, glancing back towards my house before pulling me aside near the well. "How can you be so naive?" she said, poking my forehead gently. "Clara is a good girl, but bringing noisy people like that into your home, she's a real catch, you know. Bringing the likes of Leo home? Have you lost your mind?" From her lengthy, whispered rant, I learned that Clara had told everyone it was my idea to have Leo and his daughter stay with us, claiming I felt sorry for them after they had suffered some unnamed disaster. I had to laugh internally. Clara just wanted me to absorb any social backlash. But since I was leaving in a few days, I didn't want any unnecessary drama. I just smiled and didn't say much. As I headed back, Mrs. Davis kept urging me to get rid of such troublesome people, and even offered her help if I needed it. When I got back inside, the living room was empty. I grabbed my clothes and headed for the bathroom, where I immediately noticed unfamiliar male toiletries lining the shelf. My own soap and towel had been tossed into a bucket in the corner next to the trash can, replaced by 2 new towels and expensive-looking shampoos. "Excuse me, bro, Maya needs the bathroom," a voice said from behind me. I felt a deliberate shove, and my head slammed against the doorframe. Leo tried to push past me. "Please let me through, you're in my way," he insisted. His voice was soft, but his smug, dismissive attitude was unmistakable. This time I didn't move. "Apologize," I said calmly. Leo was startled, clearly not expecting me to stand up to him. But his daughter was clever. Maya, who had never liked me, ran up and shoved me as hard as her small body could manage, bursting into tears. "You're bad! You're bad! You bullied my dad, you meanie!" At the sound of her cries, Clara rushed out. She scooped Maya into her arms, comforting her while scolding me. "What's wrong with you? Maya just needed to pee urgently." She shot me a disapproving look but didn't say more in front of Leo. Instead, she soothed Maya. "Don't cry, sweetie. I'll have him apologize to you, okay?" Carrying the sobbing child back to her room, she promised her candy. Leo gave me a mocking smirk before following them inside. As the child's heart-wrenching cries began to fade, I put on a stoic face, finished my shower, and packed my things into the wash basin. By the time I returned to the bedroom, Leo and Maya had left. A box of colorful candies sat on the bedside table, clearly for the little girl. Clara paused her tidying when she saw me sit down on the bed. I looked at her and knew she was about to speak. She would probably tell me to be more understanding towards children, to not hold a grudge. She might even suggest I apologize. I calmly sat down, took a clean piece of paper from the desk, dabbed at the bleeding scrape on my forehead, and handed it to her without a word. The bright red stain on the white paper was stark and undeniable. Whatever lecture Clara had been preparing died in her throat. Her face flushed with a mixture of colors, a portrait of profound embarrassment. That night, I grabbed a blanket to sleep on the couch. Wait, Clara stopped me. You can sleep inside. Why go out? She assumed I was still upset about the earlier incident. She sighed and led me back into the room. Maya is just a child, and Leo didn't mean to upset you. You're an adult. Don't be so petty with a kid. You know guests are welcome in our home. I know you don't like Leo, but life hasn't been easy for him, so please don't be so small-minded, I sneered. So you brought them back here and told everyone it was my idea? Clara stopped breathing for a moment. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. See? No matter how righteous you try to sound, you can't even deceive yourself. Out of respect for her parents, I had no desire to ruin her career, but my goodwill ended there. That night it was Clara who slept on a mat in the living room. The next morning, I rose early and packed all my remaining belongings, planning to check into a hotel and come back for my luggage later. As I opened the door, I saw Clara had already made breakfast. The moment Maya spotted me, she huffed and pulled the breakfast dishes closer to herself and Leo. Clara emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of eggs, smiling awkwardly when she saw I was awake. "Come over, I made eggs," she offered. Then she noticed Maya hoarding the food and said sheepishly, "Maya, honey, share some with your uncle, okay?" I ignored them all and walked out the door. The only hotel in town was just a block away. I booked the cheapest room, paying $21 for 3 nights. After securing the room, I bought some dumplings and fried dough from a nearby breakfast stall. But when I returned to the house, I found my neatly packed belongings scattered across the floor. Maya had found my acceptance letter, torn it into pieces, and was happily folding the scraps into paper airplanes on the table. A roar of anger buzzed in my head. "What are you doing?" I yelled, snatching what was left of the letter from her. The sudden movement made her lose her balance and fall off her chair in surprise. Her loud wails brought Leo rushing in from the other room. "What are you doing? Who gave you the right to bully Maya?" he shouted, giving me a hard shove before tenderly picking up his daughter. I was shaking with rage, carefully unfolding the tattered pieces of the letter. "Me? Bully her? Did you even see what she did? Who let you touch my things? Get out of here!" Leo stood up, holding Maya, and glared at me coldly. "You're not married to Clara yet. You don't get to call the shots here." He started for the door, but paused to turn back. "And even if you were married, you still wouldn't win against me." The door slammed shut behind him. Leo always showed his true hostile colors when Clara wasn't around. In my past life, I had been insecure and cowardly. He was handsome, had a good job, and was a prominent figure in the local arts ensemble. I had always felt inferior. But with this second chance, I was finally at peace with myself. Why should I compare myself to him? To Clara, Leo would always be important. But apart from Clara, didn't I have my own life to live? I could go to college, contribute to the country's development, broaden my horizons, and gain new experiences. This swamp of petty drama would only hold me back. After carefully packing everything one last time, I drew another large X on the calendar. I shouldered my bag and walked to the hotel I had booked. When I was first reborn, I had briefly entertained the idea of causing a scene at Leo's workplace. He had ruined my past life, and a fire of pure rage burned inside me. But what good would it do? As long as Clara was there to protect him, he would be fine. Even if he lost his job, she could support him. It wouldn't truly hurt him. As long as I still cared about the kindness her parents had shown me in raising me, as long as I didn't want to completely destroy Clara, Leo was safe. The truth was simple. Clara had a wandering heart. Leo had plenty of old army buddies, yet none of them took such special care of him and his daughter, acting as Maya's de facto godfather. At the hotel, I began to draft a letter to Clara. If I set aside the mess our lives became after we married, and set aside her complicated relationship with Leo, She had supported me through high school. She had fed me and occasionally helped with my homework. That was enough for me to feel I owed her an explanation. In the letter, I stated clearly that I had already called off the engagement and had been accepted to a university in another city. From this point forward, we would go our separate ways, never to cross paths again. I was halfway through the letter when there was a knock on the door. Assuming it was room service, I opened it without a second thought, only to find Clara standing outside. She looked exhausted, as if she had been running all over town. Upon seeing me, she let out a visible sigh of relief. "I finally found you. Thank God you're okay." I had assumed she had come to criticize me again. "Okay, don't be mad. Come home with me," she said, nudging her way into the room and trying to help me pack. I quickly slipped the half-written letter under a book on the desk. Her eyes, however, landed on a silver bracelet nestled among my things. Her expression changed as she picked it up. "How did you get this?" I froze, regretting that I hadn't hidden it better. "Earlier today, Maya was messing with my things, and a small bell fell off it. I was just fixing it," I improvised. This bracelet was one of the tokens exchanged when we were betrothed as children. I had brought it back from my village. Clara was looking at me strangely. "How do you have this bracelet? Isn't it supposed to be with my mother?" I was struggling to come up with a plausible explanation when she suddenly laughed. "Oh, I get it. My mom must have asked you to bring it to me, right?" She placed the bracelet back with my things. "Just leave it with you for now. We're getting married soon anyway, so what's mine is yours. You can keep it all together." I let out a silent sigh of relief, but my hand still rested protectively on my bag. Clara frowned. "What's wrong? Are you still angry? Maya was wrong, but she's just a child. Don't make such a fuss. Do you have any idea how worried Leo was when you ran off? He went out looking for you last night and even scraped his knee. He's lying at home resting now. I don't get it. Maya is always so well-behaved, but you two seem to clash every time you're together." She was about to continue, but she stopped when she saw the calm, almost detached expression on my face. I suddenly smiled. "You know, this afternoon, your goddaughter was going through my things, and I told her to get lost. But your friend Leo told me I had no right to tell her what to do. He even said that even if I married you, I wouldn't win against him." I watched as the color drained from Clara's face. "What do you mean, my daughter? She's just my goddaughter," she stammered. I ignored her and continued. "You keep using caring for a fallen comrade's family as your excuse to get close to him. But if his deceased wife knew this is how you were caring for her husband, do you think she would rest easy in her grave?" I laughed sarcastically, laying her flimsy justifications bare. Her face contorted, and she seemed to waver on her feet. After a long moment, she finally managed to say, "If you're not going back, then just stay here and reflect on your actions. I'll come back for you in a few days." Clara left in a hurry. "I never meant to hurt you," she called over her shoulder. "I'll file the marriage report when I get back." As her footsteps faded away, I quietly shut and locked the door. It was ridiculous. She acted as if filing a marriage report and marrying me was some grand favor for which I should be eternally grateful. The next day, I went to my teacher's house to pick up my train ticket. He had been worried I wouldn't get a seat, so he had bought one for me in advance. He had also contacted some old friends in City A, asking them to look after me a bit when I arrived. I had lunch with him and his wife, and in the afternoon I bought some local specialties to give to my future college roommates as gifts. That last night in my hometown, I got into bed early. I thought I would be restless, my mind filled with a whirlwind of emotions. But to my surprise, I fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, I dropped the letter for Clara at the hotel's front desk, checked out, and headed to the train station with my luggage. The 2-day train ride was long and bumpy, and I drifted in and out of a light sleep. Finally, when the train pulled into City A, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I had made it. I completed my enrollment and threw myself into my studies. In my past life, I never had the chance to go to college, so I treasured this opportunity more than anyone could imagine. When I wasn't eating or sleeping, I was either in class or in the library. By the time I received Clara's first letter, school had been in session for 3 months. I wasn't surprised she had found me. A month earlier, my teacher had mentioned that Clara had visited him and learned that I was in City A. In her letter, she wrote that she did not agree to breaking off the engagement, and that in her heart, I was still her husband. She claimed there was nothing between her and Leo and that she knew I didn't like him, so she had sent him away and wouldn't see him again. She said she would wait for me to come back. Tucked inside the letter was $100. I kept the letter, but I didn't reply, and I didn't touch the money. Life at college was financially difficult. Despite earning top grades and receiving a scholarship, I was still struggling to cover my living expenses each month. When my teacher found out, he gave me a stern lecture and then started sending me $50 a month, insisting it was a loan. He even added, cheekily, "Don't worry, my wife knows and fully supports it." For some reason, hearing that, tears just started to flow. In my last life, no matter how hard things got, I had never cried. But now, in the safety of my dorm room, I broke down and sobbed my heart out. My roommates were so startled they all came over to comfort me. After that cathartic cry, I felt even more determined to succeed. Every month, another letter from Clara would arrive, always with another $100 inside. The last letter of the semester said she knew I wouldn't want to come back for the break, so she was coming to City A to spend the new year with me. But she never showed up, and the letters stopped, too. Later, I found out from my teacher what had happened. Clara had married Leo. My teacher wrote that things had gotten messy. She had initially put in a transfer request to a position in City A to be with me, but someone had reported her for having an improper relationship with another man. Since I had already left and couldn't be found to act as the victim, the matter was swept under the rug. Leo lost his job over the scandal, and she ended up marrying him. My teacher added at the end of his letter, "Right now I feel incredibly thankful for you, Ethan. You're lucky." I knew I was lucky. I was lucky to have been reborn, lucky to have gone back to the moment before I filled out my college applications, and lucky to have dodged the tangled mess of my past life. It was a year later when I received one last letter from Clara. It started with 2 simple words: "I'm sorry." She then admitted that it was Leo who had reported her. He knew she was applying for a transfer to be with me and had begged her to stay. When she refused, he took a desperate gamble. He won. He got to marry her. Clara wrote that it was only much later that she finally understood what the red marks on my living room calendar had meant. She had always thought they were the dates I was counting down to our wedding. I just chuckled, gathered all her letters, and burned them. As for the money she had sent, I returned every dollar to my teacher to pass along to her. 2 years later, even before I had officially graduated, I threw myself into large-scale national construction projects. I dedicated my life to my country, never caring when, or if, I would ever return home. Clara's epilogue. I was shocked and furious after Ethan's words at the hotel that day. When I got home, I locked myself in my room for 3 days. I had to admit to myself that I had made a mistake. The mistake was letting my heart wander while I was waiting for him to grow up. In the process of repeatedly helping Leo, my heart had drifted away. Leo was understanding, and Maya's cheerful nature was infectious. I had overlooked the fact that I already had a fiancé. He had done things for me that I was secretly ashamed of. After 3 days of reflection, I knew I couldn't live without Ethan. I went back to the hotel, but it was too late. He was gone. He had just left me. I asked everyone, but no one knew where he had gone. Finally, his teacher told me he had gone to City A to study. I was devastated. I thought about the silver bracelet that shouldn't have been in his bag, and a terrible realization dawned on me. I rushed to his village, but his family coldly informed me that the engagement had been officially dissolved. I stumbled back to the house where we had lived together for 3 years. That night I drank far too much. Leo slipped in later. He saw my transfer application on the desk and created a terrible scene. Then he lost his job. His family came to my home to cause trouble, and in the end, I felt I had no choice but to marry him. But things were never the same. Gradually, my friends began to distance themselves from me. I wrote letters to Ethan, but he never replied. It was as if he had simply vanished from my world. After we were married, Leo kept a close watch on me. He became prone to fits of drama and jealousy. My parents didn't like him either, and constantly compared him unfavorably to Ethan. Justin seemed to change, becoming hysterical and neurotic. Whenever an opportunity for a transfer or promotion came up for me, he would ruin it by making a public scene, accusing me of wanting to abandon him to find my ex-fiancée. Every time, all I could do was smile bitterly. In my heart, I knew that Ethan probably found the very idea of seeing me again disgusting. As tightly as Leo held on to me, I was already nothing to Ethan. Eventually, while my friends and colleagues got promoted, I remained stuck in the same position. Leo started calling me a failure. We only ever had Maya for a child. When Maya grew up, she didn't marry well. Her husband was abusive, unfaithful, and a compulsive gambler. Leo worried about her constantly, but refused to let her get a divorce. After every fight with her husband, they would both take their frustrations out on me, telling me how useless I was and questioning why Leo had ever married me. Maya resented me too, blaming me for not having a higher position that could have supported her or protected her. I had no words to defend myself. Later, after a failed attempt to run away, Maya was brought back and brutally beaten by her husband. I was older by then and powerless to help her. In the end, Maya took her own life, leaving behind a 6-year-old son. We lost our daughter and were left to raise our grandchild. Looking at Maya's child, I can't help but remember a different young face, one that used to look at me with nothing but pure, unconditional love. I often wonder if only I hadn't gotten involved with Leo. If I had married Ethan as planned, would our lives have been different? But when exactly did I manage to lose him? I can't even remember the specific moment. Looking back on my life, it feels just as pointless and empty as his must have been in the life he chose to escape.